Good afternoon. We still have people that are coming in. It's a sign of tribute and love to know that there is a waiting line coming in to honor Rick today. But family and friends, welcome to this place. Welcome to Edgewood United Church of Christ, as we remember and honor the life of Richard Rick Bernsten. We come from different places and knew Rick in different ways. A husband, a father, a grandfather, a professor, a colleague, a friend, a neighbor, and a fellow church member, just to name a few. And we also know Rick from many different locations, as his life has spanned at least 4 continents. Do I have that count right? Well, really, who's counting anyway? Just like we know Rick in different ways, we all have different views on spirituality and religion. For some of you, church is a safe, open, welcoming place, and perhaps this church has been your spiritual home for decades. For others, a Christian worship service may be unfamiliar or even off-putting or bring back hard memories. Each person speaks out of the faith and the traditions that they know best. So if I or others use words that are unfamiliar or potentially off-putting, please know that that's not anyone's intent. We are just speaking of love the best way that we know how. We are gathered here to remember Rick and to comfort all those that are in mourning, even as we mourn ourselves. At the beginning of worship here each week, we say, no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. And that includes your own beliefs or absence of beliefs, your doubts, your questions, your disbelief, and your shock, grief, anger, sadness, and pain. Today, I want you to hear that no matter who you are or what you're feeling right now, you're welcome here. I'm Greg Briggs, the pastor, and I use he, him pronouns. I invite you to be present and give yourself permission to just be here now. Let the worries of your daily life be set aside for a little bit. That includes checking to make sure your cell phone ringer is turned off. Also, as your emotions come, let them come. Let tears fall. There should be plenty of Kleenex in the pews. As laughter comes, let that come too. As we share our stories of Rick, our emotions or feelings can easily bounce from one to another. These are all bittersweet moments of healing. You're invited to participate or not participate in any part of the service that you want, as you are moved. For some people, we really love singing and it's cathartic. For other people, maybe not so much. The same thing for trying to use language or prayers or rituals that are authentic to this place and authentic to Rick's tradition. But know that we try to be committed to radical hospitality, welcome, and caring for the vulnerable in everything that we do. We're here to support each other. Like I said, there's Kleenex in the pews. If you need something to squeeze and you don't think the person next to you would appreciate it, we have hymnals that are in the pews underneath the front. In all of this, as we prepare to share our different memories of Rick and the love that we have for him, let us also be in touch with the universal love and compassion by whatever names we know it. We also want to remember and welcome those that are not with us today physically, but are here with us in spirit, or are streaming through the wonders of the internet. Do you know if there are people joining us? So just for future reference, because we're going to be passing the piece, we have cameras there and there and there that are streaming this out. Is it going to all 4 continents? Entirely possible. So whether you are here physically or you are here in spirit, we are glad that you are with us. And so I invite you to take a deep breath in and let it out slowly as we prepare to remember the life of Rick Bernsten. Join me in our invitation and prayer. In life, in death, in life beyond death, God is with us. We are not alone. Thanks be to God. O God, creator of all life, Help us to accept death as a part of life, trusting in your goodness and great love for every one of us. We feel now the pain of parting with a loved one, but we rejoice that so many were privileged to experience life with him. We entrust Rick to you in death, as in life you entrusted him to us. We pray in sincerity and hope. Amen. In our tradition here at church, each week we greet one another in peace, and we welcome those that are watching online. So first, I invite you to look at one of the cameras and wave to them in peace and welcome. And as you were coming in, before I had to hurry some of you up to get in for the service, a number of you were filling out name tags that give your name and how you knew Rick. And so at the invitation of the family, please turn to those around you, greet them warmly, and let your neighbors know how you know Rick. So peace be with you. Well, this bodes well for the coffee hour afterwards. To stop people from greeting each other in peace. And I also want to remind you, we have a wonderful coffee hour afterwards as well. So I invite you to return to your seats and let us join together in our first hymn. No, that's okay. This is a time of joy. This is fine. Please be seated. Our first reading today is shared by Kate Dennis, and it is the Ode to a Peripatetic Professor, written by Frank Davis. Do you want to come up here, or do you want me to bring a microphone to you?
Frank liked to celebrate things like Christmas and birthdays and things like retirement parties. So this is his Ode to a Peripatetic Professor. Rick was born in Flushing, near Long Island Sound, but the Bernsten bunch were mobile. They really moved around. High school days in Dayton, BA, 67, American University, an education heaven. Then off to join the Peace Corps and serve his fellow man as a volunteer in Africa, where he encountered Jan. The volunteers then married. To Sweden they did flee, then back they came to Illinois to complete the PhD. His thesis took him off again to far-off Philippines to work on rice production in coolie hat and jeans. He joined us here at MSU in 1985. In research and in teaching, he's shown diligence and drive. He's mentored 50 graduate students, taught courses on the side, and brought his charges up to date on problems far and wide. He's traveled all around the world to visit farms and shops, to solve the farmers' problems in marketing their crops. Farming systems research has been a major thrust, as well as food security. For farmers, it's a must. Beans have been his specialty, and Crisp has backed the man in underwriting projects from Belize to Pakistan. Selling Nicaraguan beans was one of his concerns. Could farmers grow for export to increase their returns? Now that he's retiring, he's expanded operations, growing veggies in his garden to feed local populations. But with his quest to feed the world, he's certainly not through. He'll soon be off to Kyrgyzstan to see what he can do. This was November 2011.
Next up will be Saulo Goivia. Did I say that right? I'm sorry. Govia. Sharing some personal reflections written by Rick.
I'm one of Rick's son-in-law, and I have two things in common with him. We both got our PhDs from the University of Illinois, and we both taught at MSU. He taught at MSU. I still teach at MSU. We all knew Rick as this big character, outgoing and by all accounts, an extrovert, and he was always focused on service. Lately, I've been exposed to a more intimate portrait of Rick through his journals. I've been reading his journals, and I found this passage that I think it's really poignant, and it's a time where he's not so sure of the path to take, but it seems like this is one of his moments of clarity too. So I attempt to read it for you. The entry is from April 1st, 1964. He was only 18 and he was in college. And he says, "It's back home from Easter vacation. During the vacation, I realized several things. Dad still hasn't learned that I have grown up and I want to make my own decisions. Maybe it's because I've been making some lousy ones lately. I hope I'm not being stubborn in an attempt to demonstrate independence, although I realize he should impose some restrictions while I'm at home. I resent being limited. I hope that by the time my son is in his senior year, I will have the courage and will have guided him well so that he will be able to make his own decisions at 18. It takes a great deal of patience to tolerate Dad and his ways. He's facing a great crisis in life and knows not how to go. His life seems to be a sad one. He has but little to live for, little to sacrifice for. Although we bickered constantly, just before leaving home, Dad and I had a good talk. I really felt like he sincerely wants to give the love and understanding which a father feels for his children, but finds himself incapable or at least limited in his attempt to express this. During all the time I have known Dad, he has been a loner. Now I find that I seem to be bound by the same inability or tendency against making many friends. This was the surprising part to me. In the 9th grade, I once realized this and strove to overcome it. After being elected and serving as SC president, I felt that I now would be able to face the world as a friendly extrovert. And so he was, and I don't think it was just by choice, but by personality, of course, but he wasn't so sure that that was going to be what he would be able to pull that off, and I think that moment served as a guiding, some direction that he would take, and he took it seriously. That's all. Thanks.
Our next reading comes from the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. There's a season for everything and a time for every matter under the heavens, a time for giving birth and a time for dying, a time for planting and a time for uprooting what was planted, a time for killing and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up, a time for crying and a time for laughing, a time for mourning and a time for dancing, a time for throwing stones and a time for gathering stones, a time for embracing and a time for avoiding embraces, a time for searching and a time for losing, a time for keeping and a time for throwing away, a time for tearing and a time for repairing, a time for keeping silent and a time for speaking, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for war and a time for peace. Now let us hear some words of remembrance, starting with his daughter, Christine.
Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Christine Bernsten, and along with my mom, Jan, and my sister, Susie, and our families, I want to thank you for joining us today. To those of you in the room, those of you that are joining from around the world, thank you for spending this time together to remember my dad, his life, and his service, and his big, big heart. And to the amazing Edgewood community that has been home to my family for more than 40 years, thank you, especially for wrapping around my family this last year. When I was in college, a friend of mine said, "Christine, you could talk to a rock." And she said it as a compliment. I attribute my ability to talk with anyone to both of my parents, but especially to my dad. My dad loved to talk to people, and he talked to people everywhere he went. I think it was a personal goal of his to find something that he had in common with everyone that he met, and I don't think that he believed in the concept of a stranger. A stranger was just a friend you hadn't met yet. One thing I learned from my dad is if you don't talk to people, you're going to miss out on discovering all kinds of connections that you could never make up. My dad's work took our family to Zimbabwe in 1988 when I was in the 6th grade. I'd like to thank the International Library of African Music for allowing us to play the beautiful recording of Zimbabwe's national anthem at that time, Ishe Komborera. Susie and I sang it every morning at school, so it's deeply meaningful to us. Our time there was an incredible experience for our family, and I don't think any of us were ready to leave after our year there. So when I was in college and had the opportunity to spend a semester in Zimbabwe, I jumped at the chance. This was in 1997, and part of my studies included looking at the role of political theater in social movements. I got connected with a theater troupe and was invited to a late-night rehearsal in downtown Harare. It wasn't a part of town I was familiar with, and I remember being very nervous leaving the rehearsal to make my way back to the University of Zimbabwe campus. I got in a cab and started chatting with the driver. He asked where I was from. I told him America. He got excited and shared that his brother lived in America. I asked where his brother lived, and he said, in Michigan. Well, that piqued my interest, and I said, what's your brother doing in Michigan? And he said, he's studying at Michigan State University. So now I was getting excited, and I can imagine you guess where this is going. I said, what's your brother studying? And he said, agricultural economics. I couldn't believe it. I wrote down his brother's name, and the next time I called home, I asked my dad if he knew who this person was, and he did. Of course he did. My family has dozens of chance encounters just like this, connections that never would have been discovered if we hadn't talked to strangers, strangers who then became friends. It was a gift I didn't grasp when I was younger, to grow up in a family that invited anyone and everyone into our home. There are countless colleagues, students and their families, visiting faculty, and complete strangers we met waiting in baggage claim at the Lansing airport who became part of our family. Holidays were especially a thing to be shared with others. My parents wanted people to see what it was like to spend time in an American home, to have a meal other than hamburgers and hot dogs, and to experience our traditions. So holidays were always celebrated with more than our immediate family. Many of them were celebrated with people who are here today, and I've carried that on to my family. Everyone is welcome, especially at dinner time. In addition to liking to talking to people, my dad loved doing things for people. He did not sit still. He was not a man of leisure. He was a helper, and doing service on behalf of others was in his DNA. It's why he became an Eagle Scout. It's why he joined the Peace Corps. It's why he loved mentoring students. It's why he served on the board of the Haven House and the Mystic Lake YMCA. It's why he could fill a resume with all of the things he organized and led here at Edgewood alone. My dad was also a very engaged father, and he shared the things that he loved with Susie and me. So many fishing trips, teaching us how to make kites out of bamboo and tissue paper, and his personal hack was to fly the kites on a fishing pole, which actually works quite well, passing on Swedish family traditions and convincing us it actually was okay to wear a crown of lit candles on our head to celebrate St. Lucia, attending our performances and games, being sure we knew how to change a car tire, and supporting whatever we wanted to pursue and wherever we wanted to go. He also taught us what it was like to be in a committed and loving relationship. My parents were an incredible team, and together in that partnership, they explored the world. They explored the world and did their part to make it a better place. I am so thankful for my father. For all the things he shared with me and all the things he taught me, for how he treated others, and for the example that he set about how to be a good human in this world. For teaching me how to talk with people, how to find the connections we have with each other, how to focus on the things in common that we share. And so my wish for you, for all of us, is that we embrace that sentiment every day, and together we can make less strangers in this world.
Yes, Christine, Rick was special very special, as is your mother. So you're welcome. I've known Rick for many years. I started to work with him in the early 1980s when we were developing a computer program. And I used his economic expertise to help develop the module for economic analysis of the data. I then continued to work with Rick when we worked on several USAID projects, if you remember what USAID was. Rick would look at the impacts of our projects on the local populations and also of Michigan. And I learned a lot from Rick about economics, because as a plant breeder and agronomist, you don't know much about ag economics, and Rick was very good at helping me understand the different economic perspectives. I particularly remember one impact study that he was doing about the degree training that we did, giving master's and PhD degrees to students in the developing world. And in addition to the economic benefits, he also showed that there was a benefit of increased health of the student as well as their families. In addition to his research, Rick was an excellent teacher. He taught several courses, including an undergraduate course on food, population, and poverty. I went to the bookstore and bought the course pack for the course that he was teaching, and I was impressed with all the articles he had from different newspapers, journals, and magazines. It was very impressive, but it was also sobering to see some of the realities of poverty and hunger around the world. Rick also taught a graduate course. He developed a very successful study abroad program with the Philippines. Rick poured his heart into training students. In addition to the US students, he had students from 19 different countries, 9 in Africa, 5 in Asia, and 5 from Latin America. He also served on some of my students' committee to help my students understand some of the economic perspectives of the research. He maintained a very active involvement with international students, especially Indonesians and Filipinos. Ruby and I have many fond memories of parties with international students at Rick and Jan's house. And I've seen that several times. In fact, I'm going to give you a quote here, and 2 of the students that I'm quoting will talk about going to Rick and Jan's house for dinner. The first quote from a student is, "What I remember most, though, is his care for his students as people. He looked out for us, especially those of us who had come from abroad, and he and Jan often welcomed us into their homes for dinners that I still recall with great fondness. Rick was kind, generous, and genuinely invested in seeing us succeed and thrive." Another student wrote, "Under his guidance, I grew not only as a researcher, but as a professional and as a person. But it was Rick and Jan's warmth on a personal level that I'll cherish most. They were attentive to me as a person and to my growing family, my wife, and I still remember fondly the dinners and conversations we shared at their home, and we always will." A colleague who's actually here today also wrote, "His dedication to making the world better was an example for all of us." I can say amen to that. As a testament to his exceptional international scholarship, in 2011, Rick received the Ralph Smuckler Award for International Scholarship at MSU. That is the highest international award you can get at MSU. In summary, Rick was an excellent teacher, researcher, and global scholar. His legacy will live for years through his research, the students, and colleagues that had the privilege of knowing him. Rick was my colleague and dear friend. I miss him.
When I think of Rick, I think of a teacher, a mentor, a colleague, and a friend. I met Rick first time as a professor and advisor in the department where I graduated. Over time, our relationship evolved from mentor and student to colleagues working together on research and international development projects. Looking back over more than 3 decades, I can say that Rick played a pivotal role in shaping my professional journey. Early in my career, Rick encouraged me to become involved in the Bean Cowpea Collaborative Research Support, or CRISP program. That decision opened many doors and led to opportunities that profoundly influenced my research interests and career. Through those opportunities, I had the privilege of working alongside Rick on a number of projects and learning from him not only as a scholar, but also as a person. One of my fondest memories is a trip we took to Central Asia as part of a USAID-funded project. We visited research institutions, farming communities in Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. We also had the opportunity to visit historic city of Samarkand and the beautiful shores of Lake Isikul. Beyond the work, I remembered conversations, the shared experiences, and the chance to learn about a fascinating part of the world with Rick. Another memory that has stayed with me comes from Rick's retirement celebration. One slide, and John is here, who was presenting that slides, showed the world map marked with the home countries of his former graduate students. And I think Russ mentioned the numbers. But what sort of stood out for me was that the map was covered with markers stretching throughout the globe, from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and many other parts of the world. It was a powerful visual reminder of Rick's impact. He mentored countless students over the years and was one of the most sought-after advisors in our department, especially among international students. His influence extended far beyond Michigan State University through the many people whose careers he helped shape. Rick made a difference in my life, as he did for so many others. For that, I will always be grateful. Thank you, Rick, for your mentorship, friendship, and example. You will be deeply missed. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Farid, and I've been in charge of Edgewood facilities since 2018. Today, we gather to remember and honor the life of our dear colleague and friend, Rick Bernsten, whose kindness and friendship will always remain in our hearts. We are grateful for the opportunity to celebrate his life, his contributions, and the memories he left behind. I had the privilege of working closely with Rick, who was the chair of Building and Ground Committee for many years. His ability to balance a great sense of humor with a strong sense of responsibility was a valuable lesson that I will never forget. At this point, I would like to take some time to highlight some of the projects that were successfully completed through his support and persistent follow-up. First, upgrading the fire alarm system, which was completed to improve fire safety and better protect the building from potential fire hazards. Second, installation of an electronic access control system at the main entrance to enable programming and management of the building's opening and closing. Third, installation of surveillance cameras around the building to improve the safety and security of the church property. Fourth, replacement of 34 outdated light fixtures and installation of energy-efficient LED lighting throughout the main hallway. Fifth, repaving the driveway on the north side of the building. The list of completed work is very long, too long, and time doesn't allow me to go through all of them. Rick never limited himself to just building and ground projects. He was always willing to help wherever there was a need. He contributed to many aspects of church life. His efforts, his reliability, and his dedication helped make the church a better place and will benefit us for years to come. What I will remember most about Rick goes far beyond his work ethics. He was a devoted family man, someone whose qualities earned the respect of everyone around him. Although we feel a deep sense of loss today, we also feel gratitude for having known him, for having worked with him, and for the example he set through his life. His legacy will remain with us, not only in the work he completed, but also in the kindness and values he shared with others. May he rest in peace, and may his family find comfort in knowing how much he was respected, valued, and loved. Thank you.
Well, I'm Marty Jacobson, and I don't know anything about medical. I do know a lot about medical, about agricultural economics. In fact, I don't even think I can pronounce it, but I know a lot about Rick as a friend because I've known him for a long, long time. Hi, Jan. So this is kind of an opportunity to check something off my bucket list, which is to get to talk to a group at a church for collecting. I've never done that.
You can come back tomorrow and do it again.
I'm flying. Anyhow, I think it was the early 80s when we first met the Bernstens, and what I do know is it was a time when the daughters were actually shorter than me, so that was a long time ago. And they came to town, and they moved in, and the first thing they decided that they would do would be to find a church. So they went around, they checked out a lot of churches, and the pastor was always very impressed with Jan, with her musicality, playing the piano, ringing the bells, and all that kind of stuff. But they never really made a connection. I think it might have had something to do with Rick asking too many questions, but they finally found Edgewood, and somebody had told them it was a fairly liberal place, and they accepted the Bernstens, and the rest is history. My daughters actually played the bells for Jan. So I thought I would just share a couple of things about Rick that really don't have to do much to do with economics or being a professor or anything like that, but he was a Renaissance man. He was, besides what everybody talked about here, he was also an expert in many, many areas of life. He was an inventor and innovator. So we used to go to see plays at the Wharton, and we had seats way in the back. You probably remember this. And he complained because he couldn't hear very well with some of the more quiet parts of the play. So he decided he was going to do something about this. And he noticed that the other mammals were able to make their ears go forward and up so that they could hear better. So he thought, well, what can I do about this? Unfortunately, human beings through evolution, we can talk about evolution in this period. We kind of lost the ability to do that, although my uncle Leo could stand on his head and wiggle his ears. So I can't do that. So Rick really worked hard trying to establish a connection between the brain and the ear. And he ended up with a very sore neck and TMJ dysfunction. So he went back to work and he thought up a mechanism for putting a little thing that pushed your ears forward and up, and it was battery operated. I informed him that the hearing aid had already been discovered, so yeah, he didn't do that. There were other things that he definitely was inventive about. In 1996, Jeff Bezos, in his garage, formulated the plans for Amazon. But Rick had been doing this for probably 2 decades. You walk in his garage, and every tool imaginable for fixing things in the house or working on the yard, it was all there. And he had a lending system for the whole neighborhood. He knew where everything was. You had to be careful when you went in there. You had to wear protection for your head and steel-toed boots, But anyway, he definitely preceded Jeff Bezos. If he had continued and wanted to make a career out of this, the Bernsten family would be running the Washington Post now, and it'd still be a liberal newspaper. And the cold plunge. So, as mentioned before, Rick spent a lot of time in Sweden, and he used to tell stories about going in the sauna and then running out and jumping into the icy fjord. Well, he and I were sitting in the hot tub together at the Mac. Next to the hot tub was it was a circular thing with icy cold water in it. I didn't know what it was for, but I think that if you had like a sprained ankle or something, you could stick your foot in there. Anyway, we had almost solved all the problems of the world and the United States government, and were getting ready to formulate plans to tell the president what he should be doing. And he said, this is getting really warm in here. So he jumped out of the hot tub in all his glory and jumped into this ice cold thing and disappeared to the bottom, and all you could see is bubbles. And now that's a very popular thing to do among the athletes. I've been reading about it. He also was foremost in the world of culinary arts. Throughout all his travels, he tasted a lot of different things. And he used to talk about something called the durian. Did you guys ever have the durian? Well, he said, you got to try this. It's really, really good. So, unfortunately, or fortunately, they didn't sell it in the supermarkets here. And we didn't have internet, so I went to the library to find out about the durian. And it said that this thing smelled pretty bad, kind of like gym socks, kind of a cross between gym socks and a skunk. But that, if you got past that, it kind of tasted all right. So when Susie asked me to speak, I decided that I would go to the local Asian market and find a durian to try. The young lady pointed me off to this place far in the last aisle and said, that's where the durian is. And I approached the durian and I saw this yellow tape that the police put at a scene of a crime. And there were 2 security guards there. And I got closer and they said, you got to be careful. This really stinks. And I turned around and walked around. So I never tasted the durian. He was also quite a chef. Right here, in the room over on that side there, they used to have potlucks. And he still do. Good. And he cooked something called an African peanut stew. And I think I had 3 portions. I could have had 4, but it was absolutely delicious. And through the years, I asked him for the recipe. And all he would say was peanuts and vegetables. And I said, could you be more specific? And then he would start talking about some new invention or what the government did, or, he never answered the question. So now I started to think that maybe Jan cooked it. Did you cook this? So while I'm in town, I want to get the recipe for the African peanut stew. He was also, and the girls will probably remember this, quite a food critic. I really wanted to get the families together and go to Potterville, to Joe's. Do you remember? Joe's Gizzard City? Yes. And finally, we got the troops together. We went to Joe's Gizzard City, and I think that probably the cook had the night off because the gizzards were horrible. I think the girls ate hot dogs, which was smart. And so I knew that Rick was a great food critic. And I said, what'd you think of those gizzards? And he said, those are the worst blankety-blank gizzards I've ever had in my life. Man knew his food. I know he was well respected as a econ professor. I didn't understand at first. I thought, why would anybody study agricultural economics? I thought it was like really a simple thing. You go to the bank, you borrow the money, you buy the seeds, you buy the fertilizer, you plant them, you make sure they get plenty of water, take care of the weeds, then try to sell the stuff, and then hopefully make enough money to pay the bank back so that you could borrow the money again. But I guess it was more complicated than that. Otherwise, why would all these different countries want him to come and help them? He was so dedicated to his profession. We had seats in the nosebleed section of the Breslin, and it was the final game of the year. It was Michigan State versus Purdue, and it was for the Big Ten championship. And he was concerned that he maybe hadn't done all the work that he could do, so he took his laptop with him to the game. Do you remember that? And I mean, it was snowing and it was icy. I was afraid it was going to fall and break. Fortunately, it was a very good, close game, and he never opened it up. But I thought, this is dedication. So he was a great guy and a great friend, and for all the reasons. And he was very, very entertaining. And I hope that his memory will be a blessing for all the people that he, in this audience, and all the people that knew him. Thank you.
My dad had a silly streak, which balanced out my serious one. In our family, I was known as Serious Susie. About 5 years ago, my kids built a snowman in the backyard, and I texted my dad a photo, and the next day, it was dressed in my dad's University of Illinois hat, scarf, and gloves. He had snuck over and dressed the snowman when we weren't home. My dad was also one of the most welcoming and caring people I have ever known. He understood what it was like to be a newcomer. Before his family finally settled in Ohio for high school, he had lived at 20 addresses in 11 states. His sense of adventure eventually took him all the way to Sierra Leone with the Peace Corps, and our family also moved around, living in the Philippines, Indonesia, Arkansas, and Zimbabwe before settling in Michigan. My dad's graduate students and their families were always welcome at our house. My mom loves to remind my sister and me how she would often leave us, even at a young age, to keep the adults entertained and make conversation. I have lots of fond memories of dinners with students from all over the world. None of this would have been possible without my mom, who is his equal partner in creating a welcoming home for so many people. When my dad got sick this past fall, a bout with COVID accelerated his dementia. But in the week before he passed, my dad traveled around the world. One day he asked why nobody was speaking Indonesian. Another day he thought he was in Afghanistan. The next he talked about packing for a trip to India, which he took with some of you here. I hope the memory of all these places he visited and the people he loved brought him peace during this time. The last thing my dad said to me before he passed away was, "Can you give me a ride home?" I assured him I would be happy to, and I like to think that he gave many of you a feeling of home, whether you were far from your own or whether you had never left Michigan. He connected people from all walks of life and made the world a little smaller and more welcoming.
When hearing Susie describe the journey of Rick's life, the first phrase that popped into my head was wanderlust. Now, I want to be sure that I'm being clear. I don't mean that in a negative sense whatsoever, but there's a passion, a drive that invites people to travel all over the world. In fact, I'm reminded of the quote from Tolkien in Lord of the Rings, not all who wander are lost. And actually, I want to read a little bit more of that same poem. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. And that sounds like a good description of Rick's life as well. He doesn't strike me as someone that was very ostentatious or gaudy. But his welcome and his genuineness were golden traits that attracted so many people. He lived a good, long, meaningful life, creating bonds across continents and strengthening institutions and structures which helped feed the world. His work and passion surrounded him with loved ones near and far. And like all good gardeners, he knew how to plant and sustain to protect from the winter cold. No, he and Jan wandered far, but they were not lost. Indeed, just the opposite. They were becoming more grounded in themselves as they traveled. As Mark Twain remarked, travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. Indeed, I believe that the wanderlust that he had was complemented by an equally strong compulsion I'm calling welcome lust. He loved to welcome people. The desire to welcome in strangers, to make them feel at home, to make space for them. That wasn't just an attitude either, but in practical, tangible ways. Physically creating and maintaining welcoming spaces, including this congregation's building and his home as well. In the first half of his life, Rick was often the new person in town, a regular new guest, learning the rituals and routines of a new place, new neighbors, and new schools. It almost certainly molded how he approached people, his inherent curiosity and desire to find commonality across any differences. By being welcome in so many places, he learned how to be welcoming in turn. I wish he'd run an advice column or started a blog in his retirement, like Miss Manners, about how to be a welcoming host and guest. Because there's something unique in being a guest. In a recent article, a man named Sam Wells talked about being a guest as being a complementary trait to hospitality. He called it guest ability. It's the grace and the willingness to be receptive, available to learn, appreciate, and adapt to the ways of others in their territory. And I imagine that that's true in being a host, and that he also made space for guests to share of themselves as well. I know that Rick loved these opportunities to learn and appreciate new cultures and ideas. This balance between hospitality and guestability is a cooperative pair. They go together, like wanderlust and welcome lust. And indeed, it reminds us of the reading from Ecclesiastes we heard just a minute ago. For everything, there's a season. These aren't opposing forces or contrasts, but cycles that take us through life's seasons. Times for birthing, times for dying, times to plant, times to harvest, times to cry, times to laugh, times to mourn, times to dance. It's rare to just have one and not the other happening at the same time. As we're here celebrating Rick's life, we could probably drive a couple miles down the road and see a new baby being born today. The cycles of life continue on. Of course, in times of loss like this, it's common for us to quickly go back and forth between these polarities. It's a time of deep sadness at the loss, and yet as we tell stories, we also remember stories of great joy and laughter. If I had known, we would have had durian fruit prepared for all of you. At every memorial service, we find people in different emotional and spiritual stages. This might be the first experience of a loss of a deep family member or friend. For others, grief is a more familiar companion. Or even if grief is familiar, this loss might be affecting us quite differently than we expected. After all, remember that grief is love that persists on. Some of us find solace in remembering ancient words that have brought comfort for centuries. Others, it is the knowledge that we are surrounded by those that share our grief and with a chance to share our treasured stories of dearly departed Rick. As we saw when we were greeting one another at the beginning of the service, we will have a lot to talk about during coffee hour, a lot of stories to share. Because today's service is not an ending to grieving, but a chance to transform that grief into memories and decisions of what we choose to carry on from Rick into our future lives, relationships, and endeavors. For me, I'm grateful to have gotten to know Rick a little bit and to know him even more through each of you. I'll miss and crave his wonderful and unique gifts. Who knows, maybe I'll sneak into a friend's yard next winter and decorate their snowman. Or see a stranger at the airport and invite them in for a meal. I know that I want to develop my hospitality and guestability because of people like Rick. And I know that I hope to live a life that leaves so much for those that come after me: family, friends, colleagues, students, and truly all fellow citizens of the world. In Rick Bernsten, we have seen what a person can do for their country and for their world, all out of the rootedness in love and welcome, in their wanderlust to spread compassion and joy wherever they go, and in their welcome lust to create spaces for everyone. And truly, what else can we hope for? Amen. And now we will enjoy some wonderful tunes from Leo Edwards. Okay. There we go. Holy God, whose ways are not our ways, and whose thoughts are not our thoughts, grant that your Holy Spirit may intercede for us with sighs too deep for human words. Heal our wounded hearts made heavy by our sorrow, and help us celebrate the life of your child, Richard. Help us keep his memory in our lives and in our hearts. Remind us to share the stories of how he touched our lives, inspired us, and brought us joy. God, who waits for us all in heaven, assure us again that no ear has heard, nor eye has seen, nor human imagination envisioned what you have prepared for those who love you. Through Jesus Christ, the one who leads us in the way to everlasting life. And all of God's people say, Amen. I invite you to stand as you are willing and able and join in singing Amazing Grace, number 547 in our hymnal, and they are below you in the pew in front of you. Friends, after the benediction, the family invites you to join them in the social hall for coffee and further conversation and fun and embarrassing stories of Rick. Immediately after the benediction, the family is going to exit out and gather in the chapel, and the rest of you can just follow everyone else to the social hall. So hear these words. Go forth into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast that which is good. Render to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help those who are hurt. Show love to everyone. And know that as you go on your way, God goes before you to guide you, beside you to befriend you, above you to watch over you, and within you to give you peace. Shalom.